Hi guys, Buildzoid here, and I didn't really feel like making a proper video today, so instead we're going to get some low-effort content that a lot of people request. I don't know if a lot of people actually enjoy it, but I certainly get asked about it constantly. I suspect a lot of people think that their memory timings are good or something, because I don't know why else you'd want to share them with the general public. Anyway, let's get into it. Starting off with TL1A's 5800X3D. And the first thing I notice is these SCLs. What the hell is this? 4, 6? What? Why? What? Like, where did you see this? How did you even test this? Why do you hate write performance? Like, why do you hate write operations? No, this should be 4, 4, or it should be like 2, 2. Those are the only two acceptable options. Like, technically 3, 3 also works, but if 3, 3 works, 2, 2 should also work. So, yeah, no, this right here, this is not okay. It should be 2, 2. Primary is 14, 8, 14, 14, 24, all good. TRC 38, good. TRRDs, good. TFAW, good. WTRs, standard BDI. TWR, kinda loose, could probably do 10. TRFC, good. Yeah, like, everything else is good, and then we get these SCLs, which are just like, why? Like, is it because your other SCLs are like 6, 6? But like, these are not like, this one's 1. Right to write same chip, I think that's what the C is for, is 1. Right to write same dim, in other words, different rank, is 6. And different dim, which is the other different rank, is also 6. So I'm guessing the reason why this is 4, 6 is because he was like, oh, 6, 6. But like, no, like, same chip is 1. Same chip long, which I think that's the naming convention there, is like same bank group. And on Ryzen, that can be 2. So yeah, I have no idea why this is 4. I mean, why this is 6. Like, if it was 4, that like 5, 5 is auto, 4, 4 is like always works, 2, 2 is like peak performance. This right here is not peak performance. This is, I don't know what the hell this is. This makes 0 sense. Everything else looks fine. SoC voltage fine, yeah. Memory voltage not super high. I would probably try to retune this for 3733 just by loosening out the primaries. But honestly, that wouldn't really make much of a performance difference, so I don't know that I'd necessarily bother with that. So, yeah, anyway, so other than the SCLs, which makes 0 sense, this is actually good. But the SCLs, this is a problem. Like, you don't do this. I don't even know what would motivate you to do this. Where have you seen this? Like, this is the first time I've ever seen this. So this has to be some original concoction by TL1A over here. Anyway, we've got next set of timings. We've got a everything true 1T gear down mode off. We've got a 5900X on an X570 Aorus Master. Man, these are some... Oh no, he's just smashing voltage into them. Man, summer... Like, I hope you have AC. Because, yeah, that is, like, if the temperature goes up slightly. Or, you know what's actually really funny with Samsung BDI? On a lot of Samsung BDI, if the temperature gets slightly too low, your performance, well, your stability goes straight to hell as well. But this is very, very tight. Yeah, so we've got 13, 8, 13, 11, 21, 32 TRC. Oh, man. TRDS 4, 4, 6, yeah, 4, 4, 16, 4, 8. Why is that at 18? That makes, like, usually that should do 10. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's at 18. It doesn't really affect performance that much, but I really don't know why that's at 18. TCWL is fine. RTP6, TR, yeah, well, yeah, and it's dual rank, so. SCLs could well, the thing is, with the primaries this tight, the SCLs might not go lower. I'd still try it, though. Yeah, I totally would still try 2, 2. Anyway, so yeah, this profile, like, this is a thing, but this is so much voltage. Like, there is a lot of BDI out there which will not scale, like, to stability at 1.65 volts. Because that's kind of the funny thing is, like, there's a lot of BDI where it's, like, even, like, You can boot and like run benchmarks at like stupid voltages on pretty much any Samsung B die. But actually being fully stable above like 1.45 volts is not consistent. There are a lot of B die kits that like, admittedly, these are like trash tier B die kits that above 1.45 volts, they're impossible to stabilize. There's just nothing you can do about it. They will not be stable. Um, and then there's like and a lot of kits will usually, like most kits will actually scale for full stability to somewhere between 1.5 and 1.6. 1.65 is very high voltage. Very, very high voltage to be like fully stable at. Especially at settings like this. And the next thing we have is 4015 with 2000 FCLK. A lot less aggressive on the voltage. Lucky. Oh, it's a 5800X3D, right? So a single CCD CPU. I'm pretty sure the Intel MLC thing doesn't work properly on Ryzen CPUs. Just like, I'm assuming it's optimized, like it's designed specifically for Intel chips, so I'm not sure how valid it is of a benchmark on AMD CPUs, but yeah, no, this is. Oh man, those WTRs are crazy low. Oh wait, no, this is Micron. Yeah. What Micron though? And okay, I think I'm gonna have to open this in a. M8FB. Ah. Yeah, that would wait. M8FB. Oh right, 16 gig single rank. Oh yeah, that explains it. Yeah, 2.6. Micron does really low write to read timings, which is kind of neat. And then we've got the SELs at 2.2. No, that should work even on Samsung B-Die, the SELs at 2.2. And then 1.55 volts. Well, I guess at a lower speed like this, you don't need to drop the VTT, but at higher speeds, Micron really benefits from like reduced VTT voltage. Anyway, yeah, this looks good too. 11,000 points in Geekbench. I'm not sure if that, like, the problem with a lot of memory benchmarks is that they are CPU specific. So it's like, I'm not sure how 11,000 points on a 5800X3D compares to other CPUs, because I think the the L3 cache might actually be slightly dragging that score up compared to other Ryzen chips. But the timings here are very good. This right here is goals in terms of memory timings. Anyway, let's keep going. Got Madness with Micron, I'm guessing. Yes, Micron. M8FB1, man. Yeah, M8FB1, so Rev B, 16 gig DIMMs, yeah, single rank. Doing 5,000 in Gear 2 on a 12900K. This is better than Micron's DDR5. It actually is, though. Like, that's the stupid thing about this. This is actually just better than Micron's DDR5, because Micron's DDR5, at best, is doing like 5,400 with the worst timings you've ever seen. So, yeah, that's dumb, isn't it? Anyway, 18, 23, 23. I wonder what voltage we're at. 1.55 DIMM, 1.2 SA, 1.3 VDDQ. You really don't need a lot of... Like, the nice thing about Gear 2 is you don't need a lot of SA voltage for it. With a fan... Okay. Yeah, it's doing 1T, it's single rank. Well, it's not actually 1T if you're in Gear 2, but it's... Because the memory controller's sending commands at half rate, so... Because the memory controller is running at half speed, but... Yeah, no, this looks good. Like, TRDs are good, WTRs are good, RTP is very low. TFAW is at 16, cast write latency at 18. Which may... Would that really not go any lower? Oh, well, it doesn't really, like, 2 ticks of cast write latency wouldn't make too much of a difference. So, yeah, this looks good. So that's some impressive Micron Rev B single rank overclocking there. The one concern I have with this, though, is I wonder how retrain stable it is, because Gear 2 on Intel CPUs has a tendency to randomly stop working. Like, if you reboot it a few times, at some point it's just going to be unstable for no reason. Then again, that also depends on how good your CPU's memory controller is and the motherboard, so a lot of variables there, but yeah, like in my experience, it tends to be a massive problem above like 4666, where it's just like for DDR4 on like 11th gen and 12th gen, where it's like once you go above 4666, especially if you're pushing like really aggressive timings, the memory controller has a tendency to randomly stop doing its thing. And it's not like it won't post. No, it'll post. It'll just not be at all stable, which is sort of the main issue with Intel's Gear 2. Funnily enough, AMD's 2-to-1 mode doesn't do that, which is also why I consider AMD's memory controller actually like the Ryzen, the APU memory controller, to be superior to the Intel memory controller, because the Intel memory controller, I think, actually has the record for raw memory frequency, but the AMD memory controller doesn't randomly stop being stable. So from like a usability perspective, I far prefer the AMD APU memory controller for like raw clocks. But anyway, that still looks very impressive, and if it is actually like multiple reboots stable, that is actually very, very cool. 12700K with Samsung dual rank B die, so 4015 with generic B die timings. Yay! How exciting! The tertiaries are very tight though. 6. So like same group is really good. Different rank. Wait, 6477. I think that's normal. Can't remember off the top of my head. Wait, no it isn't, because he's got 66 here. Yeah, this really should be like 6466, I think. It's been a while. I'm gonna have to like pull up one of my own videos to check what like. Okay, let's see. Z690 DDR4. Oh man, that was ages ago. Uh. Tertiary timings. Oh no, it's normal to have them at 7. Okay, I just don't remember what they're supposed to be at. So actually, I mean, it is pretty though the read writes are very tight. Oh, it's also TCWL16. So I've not tested this a ton though. There are some CPUs where you can like trade cast. Well, there are certain scenarios where you can trade like cast write latency for read to write, same group, read to write, different group, like those timings right there. Like if you lower cast write latency by 2, you have to raise these by 2, or the other way around. And generally, it's better to have these very low rather than cast write latency low, because cast write latency only applies to a single write command, whereas these apply to like multiple consecutive read to write transitions. So you'd be like potentially hitting these a lot more frequently than you'd be hitting this. Anyway, so it's cool. Oh, it's also on 2T command, right? Which is kind of necessary with dual rank on Samsung BDI with the Intel 12th gen memory controller. Anyway, next we've got... I don't even know what this is. Some kind of... Yeah, I have no idea what this is. 1850 is what, 3700? Yeah. Oh, finally, why would you do this? You posted one useful, like 3 images, and only one of them is actually useful. Okay, well, team group, dual rank, DJR. Also, this is just auto. Or at least I hope it's auto, because if you manually punch this in, this is terrible. This this is not okay. This is really, really bad. The TRFC over here. This is an absolute like disaster. Just I suspect this is Hynix. If it is Hynix, this should be in like the 500 range, maybe lower. If this is Micron, it should be in the 600 range. Regardless of what it is, and actually, there is no memory chip that I'm aware of where it should be 1,000. Like, this is worse than JEDEC spec. And this is a. Why is it like that? I don't. Why? Why is it so bad? Like it shouldn't. Like this is way beyond JEDEC Auto even. Like on Auto, this should be like the TRFC should be working out to 350 nanoseconds, and as you can see from Zen timings, it's at 550 nanoseconds. Why? Yeah. So this is terrible. Fix that. The TRRDs are also terrible along with TFAW, which is a given. SCLs could almost certainly do 4. Primaries TRC is like surprisingly decent. Yeah, considering how bad everything else is, TRC is actually surprisingly good. But yeah, no, the TRF, this is a disaster. This is an absolute catastrophe. Like this, no. The same dim timings. This should be 4. That 5 should be 4. The 7 over here should be 6. I haven't checked if my mouse is actually okay. My mouse is showing up. So yeah, the 7 should be a 6, and the 5 should be a 4. RTP could probably do 8. SCLs should be 4. TRDs like 4 4 16 is ideal. 4 6 16 is almost guaranteed to work. WTRs 4 8 works almost always. And TWR should be like 10 probably, or 12. Like it really, like not 26. I hope this is mostly auto, but that TRFC is a complete disaster. I've just like if that's auto, something is wrong with that BIOS. Though it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if AMD had the innovative idea of just screwing memory performance with an AGSA update, because that sounds like a very AMD thing to do. I don't think Gigabyte would do this because Gigabyte generally doesn't mess with the auto timing rules. Like there are other manufacturers, like EVGA has some wacky auto timing rules. Like wacky in the sense that EVGA motherboards will often preload BDI subtimings, which is really not fun when you don't have Samsung BDI. Like I tried testing Samsung CDI on a Z590 Dark. A very like the first problem I ran into is I had to manually set all of the timings to like JEDEC spec because the board was preloaded. Like the board figured out that it's like some kind of Samsung memory chip that I was using, but the board only has presets for BDI, so it loaded up BDI timings on freaking CDI, like for the sub timings, and it doesn't even tell you. It's not like an option you turn on and off. No, it just tried to preload BDI timings, which was not just didn't work because CDI sucks. But yeah, so like Asus also does this where they're just gonna load up different timings from whatever the XMP wants. MSI does this, but I've never run into that with a Gigabyte board ever. Like Gigabyte boards on auto use whatever the memory kit asks for, or they use JEDEC. They don't do anything else in my experience. So, yeah, I don't know how that TRFC ended up at 1027. That board should be able to do 3600. even on 64 gigs of memory. Unless it's some kind of Hynix. And the dual rank timings are terrible, or, well, terrible. They're bad, because like 5577, this should be 4466. TRFC is not on auto. Oh, right, this is probably Hynix, isn't it? Wait, is this Hynix A die? Or, actually, no, it could be M die, I guess. That would kind of explain the lower memory speed. Though I think I have some M die and it does like 3666. T-Fall's good. WTRs look okay. TWR looks okay. Yeah, so really the only thing I'd fix about this, RTP looks good. SCLs look okay. Yeah, the only thing I'd fix is the SD and DD timings, and because 5577 is like, it should be 4466. Also, I'm surprised that it can't clock any higher. Might be worth trying gear down mode disabled and 2T command rate instead. Yeah, not bad, though I don't know what memory chip that is immediately. Anyway, next we have 4 8GB Micron Rev E sticks on Z690. Doing 1418, 1442. Yes. Micron. Change TRFC to 580 due to reboot instability. TRAS maybe goes 2 lower, but near the TRC limit, yeah. Same group at 6. Yeah, that's normal. Wait, maybe... Wait, isn't this dual rank? Oh, he has different rank, but DD set to 7. Okay, that should be okay. So, the thing about setting your tertiaries to 0 is, especially if you're on a dual rank setup and you set the wrong tertiary to 0, you delete a bunch of performance because the memory controller goes into a sort of failsafe mode. So honestly, I wouldn't really recommend doing this. I would generally keep your DR and DD timings at the exact same value. That way you can't screw up. Yeah, that's the easiest way, is just keep them at the same number, and that way you can't screw up, regardless of what memory configure, like where your second memory rank is located. Anything else? I mean, the tertiaries look good. RTLs also look good, which is kind of surprising for a 4-DIMM setup. 3866, Gear 1, Command Rate 2. It's dual rank. TCWL is very low. Yeah, this might be worth trying to trade the TRD. So TRDWR is really high and TCWL is really low. Whereas earlier we saw like really, really low TRDWR, but like relatively high TCWL. So I do remember that correctly. You can trade those. So that might be worth trying, is like TCWL 14 and TRDWR SG at like 10. Yeah, at 10. And that should work. And probably deliver slightly better performance. Anyway, next up we have a person with a very big screen, which makes this not fun. 4000, 14, 15, 12. B die. 28, 2T. Dual rank DIMMs. 69. Yeah, so RTLs look fine. Maxed out TREFI. Brave. Very brave. TREFI is an absolute nightmare to stress test, which is why I don't generally set it all the way to 262,000. Like, that's the one that you get, like, very easy, like, potentially silent data corruption, and it's really hard to test for because it takes forever to prove that, like, that isn't, causing issues. Like, one thing you can do is, like, you can test your TREFI limits at, like, very low frequencies, and if you're fine at low frequencies, then it's probably fine at high frequencies as well, but even then, like also going from like 65,000 to 262,000 on TREFI doesn't make that much of a performance difference because at 65,000 TREFI, your RAM spends so little time refreshing that reducing it further doesn't really make much of a difference. Right? Like basically the way you should see TRFC and TREFI is like percentage of runtime spent refreshing. Um, and once you're at um, once you're at like 65,000 TREFI with like a 300 cycle TRFC, it's already not like your RAM really isn't refreshing that often for that long. So it's not really much of a concern at that point from a performance perspective. But like it does help. It does help performance a bit. And if you're, willing to potentially put up with with the stress testing, then go for it. Anyway, cast write latency at 14. TRD, yeah, read to write, same group, different group, 10, 10, 10. Write to write, same group, different group, 26, 21. So that's actually very tight. And this is on a, what CPU is this? Oh, 12700K, right? Yeah, no, this looks good. TWR pre at 30. TRD, yeah, looks good. I don't have much info to provide as other people, as this was not planned. X299. Well, I don't know why I opened that in a new tab. I could have just clicked on it. We've got 4,000 single rank quad channel. 15, 18, 18, 36. Is this B-die? Oh, what is... Oh, it's a 4,000. So the thing about the X299 memory controller is... It's a weird memory controller. It's really good at doing like 1T command rate. Is really, really good at 1T command rate. It basically, like at the time that it came out, a lot of the other memory controllers needed like specific, well, Intel memory controllers needed like specific optimizations to get 1T working on most motherboards. On X299, 1T just works. Even at like very high memory clocks, it just works. So that's like the one thing the X299 memory controller is good at. And then in terms of everything else, it's like it doesn't really clock that high. It has weird issues with high voltages, not really relevant to 24/7 setups, but it is a thing. And also, like your primary timings are unlikely to go as low as they are on some other on some other CPUs. So yeah. Anyway, also it has a TREFI limit of like 32,000, which in this case is 30,000, which I'm pretty sure on ASRock you can set it to 32,000. There's no reason to have it at 30,000. Not that it'll make a huge difference, but like your TREFI is already like it's already limited way below what you can set on other platforms, so you might as well max it out to whatever the motherboard allows. Why? Oh man, X299 memory controller has like the tertiaries are completely whack compared to everything else. Like Intel doesn't normally have TCCD timings, but X299 does. Which makes things very interesting. I'm pretty sure these are supposed to be 4.7 though instead of 4.8. If that was stable, like from a performance perspective, 4.7. Anyway, the secondaries which are consistent, those look fine, right? 12, 284, 44, 16, TFAW, TRTP at 10, that's fine. TCWL at 12, that's fine. RTLs are kind of all over the place, 57, 61, 59, 61. But that's kind of still normal for X299. So, yeah, this looks like with my limited X299, like the thing is, I spent most of my time on X299 running 3D Mark, not memory benchmarks. 3D Mark doesn't care that much, and I didn't really go for like full memory, fully stable memory overclocks on X299. So this looks fine, I guess, for like a daily setup. It's certainly better than an XMP profile. 4733 CL18 1-to-1 with a 2x a 5700G. Yeah, see this Ryzen APUs, man. Best memory control, best DDR4 memory controller by far. Why are the SCLs so loose though? Why are these at 5? Also, yes, this is single rank, so all of the DD and same DIM, different DIM timings, yeah, those are all at 1 because they don't do anything if you only have one rank of memory. Anyway, 18, 8, 19, 19, 28, 48. Pretty sure that is supposed to be 47. 28 plus 19, but it's not really, like, it doesn't affect stability if you set them wrong. Like, the TRAS could be a 21, and it still wouldn't really affect anything, because basically the memory controller just kind of ignores the TRC timing. Well, the Ryzen memory controller will ignore whichever timing is lower. So if your TRAS is too low, it ignores it. If your TRC is too low, it ignores it. For those two. So if your TRAS is like way higher than is so high that TRP plus TRAS is greater than TRC, your TRC setting gets ignored. If your TRAS plus TRP is lower than TRC, your TRAS gets ignored. So yeah, which leads to fun things like what I'm currently doing on my daily system, which looks like this. I have a TRAS of 21 with a TRC of 64. Because the memory controller just ignores the TRAS in this scenario. So this doesn't affect stability in any way, shape, or form. It also doesn't affect performance because it just straight up ignores that timing, which is why I think it's really dumb that we have like, two timings on Ryzen that basically do the same thing. You could have one of them and it would like make no difference, but whatever. Anyway, TRRDs look good, TFAW good, WTR is kind of loose. Then again, this is at 4733, which would potentially necessitate that. TWR a bit loose, but it is clocked very high, so I'm going to assume that that's part of that. But the SCLs are inexcusable. Like these really, like maybe not 2. I'm not sure that 2 would work at 4733, but 4 or 4 should work. And then TCWL16, that's fine. RTP8 is fine. So yeah, this looks... How is TCKE at 0? I'm pretty sure it's limited to 1, but... This looks fine. Also, this is on a B550 Vision D-P with a lot of SoC voltage. I am not sure how safe that is for the Ryzen APUs. On the Ryzen CPUs, definitely not safe. The I/O die really doesn't like having that much voltage applied to it. But the APUs don't have an I/O die, right? So they work very differently. And so this might actually be just fine, but I have no evidence for that being just fine. So personally, I would probably stick to less than 1.2 volts of SoC voltage. But if you don't care that much, then, like... The thing is, it's not like your memory control... Well, okay, that's not true. If anything is likely to die, just up and die instead of just degrade, right? Like, CPU cores will generally degrade with too much voltage. So you have there's a warning period where it's like, you need to back up your voltage before you cause well, I mean, you've already caused permanent damage, but it's like, if you don't back off your voltage, that damage is going to get worse and worse and worse. Whereas with memory controllers, my experience is that it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Oh, it doesn't work anymore. Like the memory channel, you just lose a memory channel entirely, or something like that. So, yeah, personally, I wouldn't be pushing almost 1.3 volts of SoC voltage, but I also don't have any evidence to say with absolute certainty that this is going to cause damage. Or like how quickly it's going to cause damage. So this I'm going to say this is on the brave side of SoC voltage settings. Memory voltage and VTT look, sensible. So, yeah. Though these timings are kind of loose for how much voltage you're running. I guess this isn't it's a 3200 CL14 kit. So, it might actually be limited to primaries that loose. Oh, SCL's to 4 from 5. Oh, so he fixed it. Cool. Let's keep going. How long is this video? 34 minutes. I think we're going to do like a couple more. Let's see. Single rank B die on Z690. Boring. C die. Okay, we might do the C die. Anyway, we have an H310 motherboard. Wait, you can overclock? Oh, right, you can tighten timings, of course. 12, 16, 16, 32. What is this that your TRAS doesn't go lower? Command rate 1. It's very low. Like, the clock is really low, so what did you expect? TWR8, TRFC 315. What is this? Seriously, what memory chip is this? Because he's at 2666. That's 236 nanoseconds. What is that? I guess it could be some kind of Hynix. But then the TRAS is way too high. Oh, well, you know, credit for, like, getting the most out of your extremely locked motherboard. I will say that. But yeah, the TRAS seems kind of high. Because this really doesn't look like it's Micron. Yeah, and the tertiaries are very, very low because, yeah, 5, 4, 7, 6. I no wonder if you could do 5, 4, 6. Or maybe even 5, 4, 5. Then we've got the 10, 10, 10, 20, 16, 4, 4, 5, 4, 7, 6. I might be wrong about like the sevens. Like they might not actually go lower because it looks like he tightened absolutely everything else. So yeah, this is interesting to look at. It's a lot of effort to put into a very locked motherboard, but you know, like if you can't. I wonder if you could bump the BCLK. The thing is, on that board, you might not even have a BCLK option. Because Intel, on their locked motherboards, like, you shouldn't be able to raise the BCLK by more than 3%. But even, like, if you're doing all of this, then another 3% clock speed would be, you know, nice. But, yeah, for a locked board, that's cool to see. We've got a Rocket Lake CPU. Let me just where are the timings? Also, this is in Gear 2, so that latency is just spectacularly god-awful, but yeah, and people think Ryzen has high latency. Anyway, though to be fair, Ryzen has Ryzen in 1-to-1 mode has high latency, and in 2-to-1 mode, it's so much worse. Actually, it's not. That's actually really weird to think about. Because, like, 1-to-1 on Ryzen 3000 is, like, minimum latency is, like, 62, 60, like 61 nanoseconds. In 2-to-1, it's, like, 70. Whereas on Rocket Lake, minimum in 1-to-1... Well, actually, no, this isn't minimized for 2-to-1 either. This is probably auto 2-to-1. And auto 2-to-1 is bad. Very, very bad. Also, this looks like it's probably Hynix DJR, which really isn't helping. Anyway, next up we've got some 2x single rank B die running generic B die timings. Yep. 7, 4, 10, 10, 26, 21, 6, 4. DCWL13 at 3900 on a MSI Pro Z690-A. Yeah. About as unoriginal as memory overclocking gets for 12th gen. And then we've got some sea dye down here. What flavor of sea dye? I think this is CJR, right? No. Yeah, wait. Four 24. So this is kind of pointless. But, you know, not the end of the world, I guess. 630, though. The primaries don't look like Samsung C die. Also, I'm confused why TRC DWR isn't 8. I wonder if this is CJR. Anyway, forgive me, Bill Zoid, I have sinned. Crucial Ballistics Sport LT. Yeah, there's no forgiveness. MCLK, FCLK, UCLK are all 2000. Tuned a bit of TRFC 123 and everything else stock. Can't budge any other numbers. Hynix DJR. You should be able to lower TRC. Also your SCLs. Also, maybe give up on the crazy high MCLK, FCLK, UCLK. Like, your timings are so bad that, like, 8, 11, 42 on TFAW and the back-to-back activates, like, it's going to take forever for your memory to do basically anything other than IDA. IDA won't care. IDA's a terrible benchmark. Also, the SCLs are awful. Everything about this is awful. This is why, like, I'm pretty sure these timings are so bad that you're not gaining performance from the extra FCLK. Like, you might actually be losing performance. Also, the terminations look kind of whack. Then again, I've not tried dual rank DJR on Ryzen, so maybe this is just how that's supposed to look. Also, you're at 1.37 volts. Like, it's DJR, just like smash 1.6 volts into it, and it'll like lower your cast latency if nothing else. But yeah, I would seriously consider giving up on the high clocks and tune it at like, because like here's the thing: if you have a bunch of like you're tuning your like you're basically doing the AMD FX CPU thing. The frequency is incredibly high, but nothing actually gets done because everything takes forever. Like it takes many, 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 many clock cycles to do anything. Like a read command takes 18 clock cycles, which, to be fair, that's typical Hynix DJR things. But, like, activating 2 different banks takes 8 cycles instead of 4. Or activating 2 banks in the same group takes 11 cycles instead of, like, 6. And then activating more than 4 banks takes 42 cycles. And then we've got, what else? Like, well, your TRFC is actually reasonable, but your back-to-back reads, so if you want to send a read and then another read, you have to wait 6 cycles instead of 4, or instead of 2 potentially. Oh no, there's 9s. Somehow my eyes just like didn't register. This is a disaster. Like, it takes, so one of the big benefits of dual rank in theory is that if you have multiple ranks, it takes less time to send a read operation to like a different rank than it does to in like the same same bank group, but or in like the same bank, but like, oh no, this is terrible. This is absolutely freaking horrendous. Like normally these should be like auto should be like 7-7, but this is 9-9. Like burn this down and start over. Like or start at like tune like maybe start at 3600, dial in something that doesn't suck, and then build on top of that. As in like move up to like 3800 or something and see what you can do that's kind of inspired by what you did at 3600. Because this right here is a dumpster fire. This is terrible. This is absolutely just horrendous. It takes forever. Like if you run IDA, it won't care. If you run Geekbench, no, it will care because these are so bad. Like the tertiaries here are absolutely atrocious. Like at least the same chip timings are still at 1, but I don't think I've ever seen those be anything other than 1, so it's not really a concern. But everything is bad. TRC is bad. T-fault bad. WTRs, actually the WTRs aren't the worst thing. Like it's not, the thing is WTRs don't really go that much lower. Like you can cut them in half, but some of these actually, that's kind of true for everything here, is you can cut it in half. But like you have, like if you're doing back-to-back write operations, there's huge gaps between them. Or write-to-write reads. I mean, back-to-back reads are also just a disaster. There's like a 1 clock cycle gap between every single consecutive read operation. Actually, potentially there's 2 cycle gaps because of the SCLs. Yeah, no, this is terrible. This is absolutely just like burn it down and start over. Because this is terrible. Absolutely horrendous. Now, it could also be that Hynix like to be fair, the Ryzen memory controller doesn't seem particularly fond of Hynix DJR, but I refuse to believe that this is actually like necessary. No way. Anyway, next up we have a tuned 5900X timings. Without Windows hardware error alerts, or whatever WHEA stands for. Which is impressive considering that we're at 2000 megahertz on the FCLK. And we've got 14, 17, 13, 21. Wacky B-Die. Yeah, this is G-Skill. 3.7 WTRs, that's impressive. Not all memory kits can do that. SCL's at 3. I'm surprised they're not at 2. That's a lot of memory voltage. TCWL10, that's very low. RTP at 6, that's very low. Yeah, this looks good. TRFC is also pretty low. Yeah, this just all around looks good. TRC is very low. Well, like I said earlier, it's like if your TRAS is at 21 and your TRC at 37, then TRAS just kind of gets ignored. But yeah, TRC 37 is good. So nothing to complain about there. TWR 11. And we have, right, gear down mode is enabled for this. But honestly, like, yeah, this is good. This is good. And it's on dual rank. So yeah, that's nice and fast. Let's keep going. Oh no, this video length is getting out of control. I don't care. I like looking at memory timings, and occasionally we get catastrophes like that. Anyway, we've got a 3733, 1410. What is up with people setting TRC-DWR to 10? Set it to 8. Like, I've yet to encounter a memory chip where 8 doesn't work. And yes, it does improve your performance. It's not glitched out or anything. It's just that write performance is not that important for overall CPU performance. So benchmarking the effects of very low TRC DWR is kind of a pain because your CPU, like, here's the thing. If you're doing a read operation, your CPU is probably trying to do something, and it desperately needs the data that it's trying to read from the memory right now to do the thing that it's trying to do, right? So read performance is relatively easy to benchmark because you kind of need the data right now. Whereas with write performance, it's a bit of a different matter because if you're writing stuff back into the memory, it can probably wait for a while. So that's why, like, you know, like if you're tweaking TRC DWR and you're like, it's not really doing anything to performance, it's because it really shouldn't be, but it does help a little bit, a very, very tiny little bit. And to that extent, also, I guess, like, setting it to 8 won't really improve performance in any noticeable uh, amount, but it's like, if you like, why is it a 10 though? Like, it also doesn't affect stability when you set it to 8. I'd be very surprised if this wasn't stable with it set to 8. And technically, some of your write operations would be ever so slightly faster. Unfortunately, they're just not critical for performance under most circumstances, so it's really hard to notice. Your TRC is lower than your TRP plus TRAS, so this is actually being ignored right now. I should do a video on that. Like, I did a little bit of testing on this. Basically, and I'm not sure if it might be BIOS specific behavior, but basically, if you set your TRC to like 20 or something, like 30, let's say you set your TRC to 30, pretty much no memory chip I'm aware of will actually run TRC 30, but you can still boot that if you just set your TRAS to like 40 or something. Because what will happen is your TRAS plus TRP will prevent the TRC timing from ever being used. So that's kind of the thing. It's just like, if your TRC is lower than your TRAS plus TRP, it does nothing. So this isn't like a stability concern. It's just like, this doesn't do anything. It doesn't, yeah. Anyway, TRRDs, we've got 4616, good. WTRs 412. I'm surprised that WTRL isn't 8, because this is BDI. TWR 16, I'm surprised it's not 10 or 12. It's kind of high. TRFC 280, good. SCLs 44, fine. TCWL 14, fine. RTP 8, fine. And we've got the dual rank timings set up correctly. So yeah, this looks okay. I'm just confused by the TRCDWR being at 10 and not 8. Because, like, there's no reason to have it at 10. Just put it at 8. It won't cause blue screens or anything. I mean, you know, yeah, it looks weird and your performance really doesn't change that much, but it's just like, why 10? Like, since it doesn't change performance that much, why not just leave it at 15? It feels like if you're gonna change it, punch in 8. We're not gonna see all of the timings from that, so I'm not interested. Am I not actually? I don't know what this is. So yeah, I should have just ignored that and moved on. Is this boring or not? There's a Y cruncher screenshot, which is cool. It's a very slow Y cruncher. What is this? Why are there so few pixels? Okay, well, we're not taking a look at that. There's not enough pixels. Z690 Unify X. $6,800, 28, 40, 40, 28, 2T, 44310, 130 TREFI, WR, we've got what? TWR pre at 40, TCKE4, RTP6, TFAW 16, TCWL 28. This can go way lower on Hynix. Way, way lower. It doesn't really do that much for performance again, because, you know, write operations aren't as important as reads. But yeah, you can set that lower most of the time. 11799. I feel like I've seen this before. It's very good though. Like this is goals for DDR5 right here. Yeah, like these are very good settings, but I'm pretty sure this has shown up in one of the earlier roundups. And TRFC at 310, which is pretty standard for Hynix DDR5. M die in this case. Anyway, oh yeah, I saw this earlier today. I wanted to cover this one, so I'm actually glad I didn't decide to end the video just yet, even though we're going to be hitting an hour. We've got a Z390 Aorus Pro T-topology. This is a 4-layer T-topology, which makes this all the more impressive, because 4-layer boards clock like garbage a lot of the time, especially when they're in the T-topology. Like 4-layer T-topologies are, in my opinion, a questionable design decision, because a lot of the time they really, like, especially when you don't have them fully populated, they suck. Yeah, that's the nicest way to put it. They just suck if they're not fully populated. Anyway, 4133, but this one is fully populated because we've got, 4 B die sticks in it. TRAS is at 34 for reasons I don't understand. 16, 16, 16, which makes sense at 4133. Command rate 2 because you're trying to run dual rank at relatively high speeds. TWR is at 18 for reasons I do not understand. TRFC is at 340, which I guess if the memory is running particularly hot, or if it's really not that great, that can make sense. His refresh interval's maxed out, though. So the thing is, the higher your refresh interval timing, the less important TRFC becomes. Because again, the way you should think about the refresh performance is what percentage of runtime is spent refreshing. And at some point, that percentage is so low that reducing it further doesn't make much of a difference, right? So, like for this setup right here, if I pull up the calculator, he's every 65,534 clock cycles, 340 cycles are spent refreshing. So what we're going to do is 340 plus 65,534. So we're just going to use that. And you're basically going to do 340 divided by, and yeah, like 0.5% of the runtime is spent refreshing. So that's one of the biggest advantages the Intel CPUs have when it comes to like memory settings over Ryzen, is that you can just refresh the memory very, very, very infrequently, and that makes the TRFC timing a lot less important. Whereas on Ryzen, the TRFC timing is very important because you're constantly, you're refreshing way more often, right? If I'm not mistaken, if we look at some of the refresh timings here, oh yeah, here we have one. TREFI is 14,000. So 280 plus 14,000. I don't know why I even bothered doing that. I could have just, but whatever. So we go like 280 divided by 14,300, which is roughly 14,029 plus 280. So this spends 2% of its runtime refreshing. Right? That's 4 times as much time spent refreshing as this setup, even though this actually spends more time on the actual refresh cycle. So, yeah. Also, he has fans strapped to the RAM. I approve of the fans on the RAM. And then the tertiary timings, 7, 4, 6. Oh, right, different DIMM 8. Okay, so I guess dual rank really... You can't get the DD or DR timings that low most of the time. SGs are 16, 16, 16. That's kind of high, but that might just be a limitation of the 9900K or 9700K memory controller. Like, that's one of the interesting things with the Intel CPUs is the tertiaries are where you see most of the differences between the different Intel CPUs. TFAL is really loose for some reason. Like, you have fans on this. Why isn't it at 16? Also, TRRDs should be 4.6, not 5.7. WTRs look okay. RTP looks okay. But honestly, like, this is impressive. That, 4133 on a 4-layer T topology, admittedly fully populated, but, yeah, this is impressive. So, yeah. Oh, it might need more... Yeah, it might need a bit more VCCSA if you push it any further on the timings. Because that does put more and more stress on the memory controller. So, yeah. Also, that's at 1.4. almost, I would call that 1.5. One is pair A0, the other is A2. Ugh. That's surprisingly, actually, that's really surprisingly good for. I wonder if there's any benefit to like specifically mixing PCBs. Like there could be, but because I have heard of scenario like, I kind of, at the same time I kind of doubt it. Maybe the effects are just not that big at lower speeds. Um, yeah, but that is really surprisingly good for a mix of A2 and A0 because those are very different PCB layouts. Anyway, moving on. Or maybe ending the video. Because what do I see? Generic B-die. Just clocked very high. The one downside to me recommending motherboards is that everybody ends up running this. Wait, this is a DDR5 setup. 63, so 6400. 324038. What is this? SK Hynix. Why is the TR? I mean, my personal experience with Hynix kits is that TRCD is probably like the one timing that's least like that's the big difference between my kits. Also the max memory clock, but if we ignore the max memory clock, the big difference is like TRCD. I still don't think it should be at 40 though. What voltage is this at? Other than that, 44280, 42, that's really loose. That doesn't. TWR pre is at 50 and TWR is at 42 watt. Oh, his TWR PDEN is at 75. You can set this to 4 because this is right to power down enable delay. You can set that way lower. RTP 11. The Tertiaries are a dumpster fire. 1410. 2210. 6644. Yeah, dumpster fire. Could be better, but it does 101 gigabytes per second in IDA. We're at what? We're at 6400 megabits per second, and this is 128 bits wide. IDA's a shit benchmark. How is it so close? Actually, no. So the funny thing about IDA is basically on pretty much, if you're dialed in, you should be getting more than theoretical max memory bandwidth in IDA. But the thing is, like, these tertiaries are terrible. Like here's what I would, like, I'd expect, like, 12, 8. I'd leave the 20s alone because those are probably only going to become 18s at best, or 17s. But then this 22, that could literally be a 9 in many scenarios. But you know what? Let's say 10, 8, 60. The 44 is actually really low. So this mess doesn't make any, like, this is low. This is really loose. This is terrible. This is also terrible. Like, first time tuning RAM, got this Kingston SK Hynix DDR5 kit recently and followed your video on the dies. It is an SK Hynix kit. I don't know which video he's referring to, but I have a video for Asus motherboards where I set all of the timings better than this. Also, is that TREFI 26,000? The hell is that? I was like, oh, it's 200. No, it's not. It's got 3 zeros behind it. Not. I mean, this is better than XMP. Like, it is technically better than XMP. But man, that is a low bar in this case. Yeah, no, this could be a lot better than this. Yeah, honestly, just go watch the video I made for Asus boards and just like, I mean, I'm not sure you'll be able to keep running at 6400, but you should be able to basically copy those timings. You might just have to do some translation between Asus BIOS and MSI BIOS. Anyway, that's not timings, nothing too special. Is Z690 Edge with BDI. This has become the new like Ryzen with generic BDI settings. We have a new generic platform, MSI Z690 board with generic BDI settings. Wait a minute. What's this catastrophe? It is single rank, 8-4. $36.29. Since I'd call myself a beginner, I'm assuming he didn't touch the tear cherries. Actually, he didn't touch anything that isn't a primary timing. Oh, and the TRDs. Of all the timings to adjust, you did at least adjust the most important ones. I will give you that. TREFI is blown out. TRFC is low. TRRDs are good. TFAR is good. Everything else is auto, as far as I can tell, except the primaries. So yeah, he did the like. He did the most important ones. I'll give him credit for that. I'd probably still try to dial in the tear cherries at this point. Because especially with BDI, there's a lot of headroom. Like this 36 could be a 28, this could be a 24. And that's not even as tight as it'll generally go. That's just like the convenient, like that's the basically guaranteed to work stopping point for BDI for these two. 28, 24. And actually, I'd probably like, I don't, well, 6-4 should be possible for the same group, different group timings. Though I'm not 100. Didn't I do some single rank testing as well? I like this is the thing is just like I far prefer Ryzen tertiaries. Ryzen tertiary timings are so much easier to keep track of because there's less of them. Funnily enough, by JDEC spec, this whole read to read same group and like write to write same group, that's not JDEC. That's not very JDEC of Intel. Because really there should just be one timing called cast to cast delay, and that should be the only one that controls all of that. And there should be a short and a long version of it, and that's it. Then again, on like DDR5, that would actually be harmful because there is a lot of DDR5 where your read to read same group and your write to write same group aren't necessarily going to be the same. Whereas on DDR4, they're basically always the same thing. And you know what? I'm not going to be bothered to look up a video. But honestly, like for a first attempt, this actually like he nailed the ones that actually matter the most, and then everything else is auto, which. Okay, fair enough. Z590 Strix EN11900K, dual 32 gig DIMMs, dual ranked, most likely Hynix MJR. Yeah, that looks very MJR because if this wasn't MJR, I would have expected much higher clocks. That is an awfully random TREFI number. 672, yep, Hynix MJR. I would actually kind of expect it to go a bit lower than that. Give me a second. Where's my calculator? 672 divided by 1866. Ah, that's JDEC. Okay, yeah, it would go lower. That is very JDEC. JDEC is 350 nanoseconds. This is 360 nanoseconds. So it's actually a bit looser. I would expect that to go lower. Or alternatively, you could not touch TRFC and just blow TREFI, like even higher. Like just keep raising TREFI because you can just kind of hide the long refresh by just not refreshing very often to some extent. Now, obviously, there's still the issue of like if the CPU hits like a critical instruction mid refresh cycle and your refresh cycle is 600 cycles, then or like right at the start of a refresh cycle, the CPU is like, hey, I really need this, and the RAM is just unavailable for the next 600 cycles. That is kind of awkward, but at least like if your refresh interval is high enough, it shouldn't happen very often. So, that's kind of the reason why this is so beneficial. But anyway, other than that, we've got TRD's good, TFAW good, TCWL fine. Tertiaries look okay. Hynix, unfortunately, really doesn't do very good tertiaries. So, yeah, I'm just going to go with that. This looks fine. And it's in Gear 1 and it's in Command Rate 1. So, yeah, this looks fine. I don't really have any complaints for this. 1.425 volts on the memory. Cool. Would love some feedback on achieving 3800. You either do or you get lucky, or it's basically get lucky or you don't. This is an ROG motherboard. Wait, is this 4 single? No, it's dual rank DIMMs. So we really shouldn't have issues with that. SD should be 4.6, not 5.7. That's bad. Everything else looks okay though. And I wouldn't worry too much about hitting 3800 megabits per second or mega transfers if you want to be non-specific about what you're transferring. But yeah, like the timings look fine. I wouldn't worry too much about hitting this. It won't make that much of a difference. TRCDWR is at 8 currently. Good. I won't complain if it's equal to your TRCDRD because at least it looks like you're just following the you're not thinking about it too hard. But when you set it to something other than TRCDRD and it's just some random number, I get annoyed. If it's now 8, that's good. If it was at 13, that's kind of that makes sense. 10 doesn't make sense. Okay? I don't know why people put 10. The CPU is like 2 months old. RAM is 5 years old. 5800X3D. Well, it's a good thing that the CPU has so much L3 cache because it ain't getting anything from the memory anytime soon. Z590 Gaming Force with ooh, a 10900K. That's a fun combination. 5.4, 5.4, single rank, B die. Yeah, 43, almost, well, 4266, I guess. Oh, wait, no, he's just 4300. Right, yeah, man, Intel has so many memory. Like, actually, it's kind of insane how many memory ratios you have. Like, back in the DDR3 days, you had like 1600, and the next step up was 1866. And then the next step from 1866 on some memory controllers is 2133. Right? And like these days, you have like 4000. 40 on Ryzen, you have like 4000, 4066, 4133, 4200, 4266, 4300, 4400. Like you have so much more granularity on modern memory controllers with the memory ratios compared to what you had in the past. So, yeah, this is just kind of cool that like CPU manufacturers have just added all of these extra multipliers. Anyway, yeah, this looks like generic single rank B-die timings. Actually, I shouldn't say generic. It is very tight, especially the tertiaries are very tight. The secondaries are generic though, because that's the thing is like even awful Samsung B-die will do basically standard secondary timings. So there's really not like there's not much room for creativity with your, secondary timings. And also you shouldn't be creative with your memory timings, but like yeah, with certain memory chips, like pretty much regardless of bin, they're going to end up looking the same. And then the big variance is in like your primaries, and sometimes the tertiaries can be quite different, but yeah, secondaries generally end up being the same thing. Anyway, the video is now an hour and 15 minutes. So you know what? I am just going to end it here. That's my 1 hour and 15 minutes of low effort content. Hopefully you found it somewhat interesting. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, leave any comments, questions, suggestions down in the comment section below. If you'd like to support what I do here with actually hardcore overclocking, I have a Patreon. There's a link to that down in the description below. There's also the HOC Teespring store where you can pick up shirts, hoodies, posters, the usual YouTuber merch. Actually, speaking of the Teespring, there's some new hoodie designs on there right now, so you might want to check those out. And I also have a Bandcamp, and there's a link to that down in the description below as well. And that is it for the video, so thank you for watching, and goodbye.